So I'm here with Rhode Island Jobs with Justice, and I'm urging, I'm here in support of an increase of the minimum wage. However, I would like to urge also consideration of an earlier implementation as proposed in a bill that will be heard on Thursday. The facts about the minimum wage, the population facts on the minimum wage are actually fairly stark and well measured. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 80% of the workers who work for a minimum wage are over the age of 20, 45% of whom are single breadwinners of their households, 56% are women, and in this state that would amount to 63,000 people over 20. So we're talking about adults. This was not intended as a training wage when it was initially started by FDR in '38. It was considered to be a living wage and was designed to be as such. The fact that it has not kept pace with the cost of living is a more meaningful thing now than it has been a long time. The real value of the minimum wage has not actually increased since 1979. The shopping cart look at what could be brought home in a minimum wage has declined pretty drastically, right? So if we think about what the actual value to a family is, this is the real impact. So when we factor in what it actually costs to live in Rhode Island, we come up with a very, very different picture. Employees aren't widgets, so when we use like those high school economic metrics of if X goes up, then Y goes up, that's not exactly how it works. Human beings don't move like products, they move like human beings. And they have different costs and different needs. So it's very important that when we consider the minimum wage, we consider them as people and not as a simple balance sheet item. Like, it's a little bit more complicated than that. When we look at the cost of childcare in the state, it amounts to around a little over $12,000 per year, starting at pre-K. Right? That's a significant amount. It competes with the value of rent right now. In fact, it's 80% of rent. A family who's earning this amount of money at 40 hours a week will either have to make the really difficult decision of working multiple jobs and not seeing their children and enjoying the time that they need to raise healthy families. When you factor in the cost of food, if somebody uses a really stingy budget to get the appropriate calorie intake for children and family, you're looking at about $146 a week. $146 a week. That amounts to $7,592 a year. Right? So when we're looking at the increase to just this moderate increase, which we skipped last year, which was painful, we're not really thinking that people are going to be trying to feed families on this. And I think we really have to consider that factor. When we factor in rent, the median rent in Rhode Island is $1,300 a month. Right? So when you're looking at a family that's trying to live in the state, you're looking at a cost that approaches $30,000 a year. $30,000 a year. What would be a living wage, which was the original intent of the minimum wage, not as a training wage, it would be closer to $16 an hour right now. So this increase not only is necessary to help keep families intact, it's also necessary to keep our Rhode Islanders working. Now, when we start comparing one industry or one sector to the next sector and saying, well, the value of the work in the next tier up goes down because the bottom rises, is kind of a false metric, right? It goes against the very principle of the idea that a rising tide raises all the boats. In fact, it's the exact opposite argument. You're saying that a rising tide sinks other people. And that's not at all what happens with the minimum wage. The $32 million of increased economic activity multiplies, right? When we take the wage out of either a profit sector, out of profit, or out of some other portion of industry, it goes into the pockets of employees who spend it immediately. A business owner who employs 10 people can only buy one pillow, but those 10 people buy 10 pillows, right? So if you look at it at the actual impact, you have a very, very massive change in how people are going to spend and how they're going to live. I'd be happy to take any questions.